Welcome to Marion County Today. I'm Janet Carlson, Marion County Commissioner, and today we are going to be talking about domestic violence. Actually, I like to call it family violence because there's a whole lot more to it, I think, than what domestic violence entails. Our first guest is Sarah Brennan. Sarah is with the Center for Hope and Safety, Operations Manager. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
So glad you could be here. So before we get into the topic of domestic and family violence, first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved with this issue, and how long have you been with the Center for Hope and Safety?
Well, I have been with the Center for Hope and Safety for about 10 years. Up until about 2 years ago, we were known as Mid-Valley Women's Crisis Service, which a lot of people still recognize that name. And I joined as a volunteer about 12 years ago and just have a passion for what the program does, and was able to come on staff about 10 years ago now.
Very good. And so Center for Hope and Safety itself, it has a lot of different components. Can you kind of walk us through, let's start with the advocacy and helping people with safety plans, that type of service.
Right. The Center for Hope and Safety serves any survivor of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking. One of the things we're most known for is our 24-hour hotline. And so anytime, day or night, you can reach an advocate who has gone through extensive training in violence dynamics and understanding the resources available. And that service is offered in both English and Spanish 24 hours a day. We also have a safe house shelter. We're the only undisclosed safe shelter in Marion County. So individuals that are fleeing an abusive partner who maybe is actively looking for them, checking at the local homeless shelters, looking at friends or family's homes, things like that. Those individuals and children, if they have them, can come into our shelter and have a safe place and a roof over their head while they rebuild their life. And we also offer a lot of direct advocacy. And so that can be anything from talking with an individual and hearing about what's going on and just helping them process that information, to talking about safety plans, which really looks different for every individual. We help with restraining orders and stalking orders. Some people come to our office to make police reports. If they choose to do so, they find that our office is a safe place for them.
Well, let's talk about your office for a minute, because you just went through a major expansion within the last, how long have you been?
2 years ago,
wow,
this month, yes.
Right, so you were in an old house when I first started being involved with the program,
Yes.
and everybody was kind of on top of each other. It was wonderful, you provided wonderful services.
Thank you.
But now you're in a great big expanse that helps you do, so talk about the new things that you have. I've done the tour, and like the private rooms and the resources, the diapers and clothes and all the great things that you have there for people.
Yes.
Childcare.
Well, so we have about 6 times the space that we used to in our old place. And it has been such a great blessing to be able to improve the services to survivors. And every inch of our renovations in that building was focused on how can we best serve survivors. One of my favorite things that we've been able to add is a couple of computer workstations. And they can, survivors can come in and work on housing, job searches, school, even just a safe computer to use with Facebook and, emailing friends and things like that. We also have private meeting space. We have 3 dedicated rooms and then a lot of other pockets and private offices that folks can use. And sadly, sometimes all of those spaces are busy at one time. And we have a number of support groups. On Monday nights, we actually have 3 different support groups that meet, 1 in Spanish and 2 in English around both domestic violence and sexual assault. And we provide free childcare during those groups. And so again, those are all things that we had outgrown the other space. And sadly, the demand for services has seen a sharp increase in the last few years. But really, people are willing to talk about it a bit more. It's not quite as taboo as it was when I started.
Right. And that office is not undisclosed, like you were talking about the shelter. It's very visible downtown. So I always tell people it's across the street from Macy's. Paul Logan from Northwest Human Services got upset when I did that once because he said it's right actually behind Northwest Human Services. I'm using the wrong marker for it. But
yes. So
I think I go to Macy's more than Northwest Human Services.
Macy's, Chase, right next door to the old Greyhound building.
Right, there you go.
It's right there downtown. has ample parking, which has just been great for our, and like a block and a half from the bus mall and 2 blocks from the courthouse. So those are all places that our clients travel frequently.
And that building is completely paid for, right?
Yes.
With donations. And now you're looking at expanding the shelter, right?
Yes,
So
our new effort is making some improvements to our shelter facility so that it will continue to serve folks for years to come.
Right. So that's an exciting undertaking as well.
Lots happening.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So let's talk about October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So you are one partner, but probably one of the key partners, I guess, in terms of the groups that work together on this particular issue. What is the main message this year that you're wanting to get out to the public about domestic violence awareness?
I think our main focus is simply, again, just to raise the level of conversation people are having around domestic violence. There is still a lot of belief that it can't happen to me, or it doesn't happen in my neighborhood or my faith community or my friends. And with statistics that anywhere from 1 to 4 to 1 of 2 women in Oregon experience some form of violence in their lifetime, we know it's happening. And so we're so thankful for our partners in the community, some of whom you'll hear from this through the program, because it really is a combined effort between law enforcement and the district attorney's office and other nonprofits to really provide those wraparound services. And so our main message is that there is help out there, and we would be happy to be the ones that help direct folks to the resources they need.
Now, I know also one of the things, we do a proclamation each year as a county. I've done that as long as I can remember, and are able to talk about the issue. One of the things that I think has come up in terms of education is educating young people, particularly young people who might be in homes where domestic violence has been something that they've observed, and trying to break that cycle that they might see in terms of how to handle things, how to choose friends wisely, how to choose your partner or your spouse wisely. You do work at schools, right? And a lot of training, I think, around the whole Northwest, even the nation, on how to deal with these issues. So talk a little bit about that.
So we have 2 advocates that are focused on youth, one who focuses with teens and the other who works with children. And our teen advocate is out in the schools a large majority of her time during the school year, talking in health classes about everything from oppression and sexism to what violence in relationships look like. To give you one example, a lot of times we'll hear young women say, well, he's jealous if I talk to another man, so he must really like me. Now, we know that jealousy is not part of a healthy relationship, but if you look at the media and what young women are seeing these days, having someone jealous of you and your behaviors and who you're talking to has some sort of attraction to that. And so we're trying to change those messages that they're hearing and help them talk about what does a healthy relationship look like and how is it built on trust, and help them also understand that if violence occurs in the relationship, it's never their fault. Survivors are so frequently blame themselves, and that's something that we try and start educating at a young age, so that if something does happen, they can pull back on those tools and remember.
Great. Well, thank you. It's been great talking to you, Sarah.
Well, thank you.
So much about this topic. It's such a critical topic to
Well, thank you
our
so
community.
much.
All right, thank you. And we're back with Kim Larson and Walt Beglaw. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Walt, you have been our Marion County District Attorney for how many years now?
It'll be 12 years this October, I think.
But you started with the Marion County District Attorney's Office a little bit before that, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
So how long have you been with the DA's office?
Boy, going on 28 years, I think now. I started as a law clerk and worked my way through the office as a prosecutor, and now landed in this very privileged position that I have.
And then your office oversees the Victim Assistance Office, and Kim, you're the manager of that office. So how long have you been with the District Attorney's Office?
I actually started as a volunteer in 1992, so a really long time ago. And then I was hired in 1996 to start a domestic violence program for victim assistance. And then I've kind of moved into this position over the years.
So we had a chance to talk to Sarah and learn a little bit about the issue of domestic violence, family violence, and what the Center for Hope and Safety does. And your services, I've had the great opportunity to learn in the last year, really work in tandem. So you actually work with all victims of crime, right? Not just domestic and family violence, but since we're focused on that because of the month that we're celebrating in October, talk a bit about what you do in your program for victims of, particularly of domestic and family violence.
We work really closely with our community partners to help surround them with services in our community, but specifically within the DA's office, we work to kind of help people navigate the system as they're going through the criminal justice process or as they're applying for restraining orders or other protective orders, and trying to help them understand what the process is, trying to help them feel safe in that process, and to help them understand what rights they have, what choices they have in that process.
So you're right across the street from the courthouse, and I know we had an opportunity to look at the restraining order process. So you actually have volunteers and advocates that work in your office, right, that can help people with those types of things?
We do. We have a great community volunteers that help us with that, but we also have advocates and interns in our office that anyone can drop in and come in and get help with a restraining order. If they want someone to go to court with them when they're getting the restraining order, we can help with that as well.
So Walt, tell me, why is this topic important to you, and what role does the district attorney himself play in this topic?
Well, probably the most important thing is that family is being, and lives are being shattered by domestic violence and violence within homes. And our office plays a central role in that because we're tasked with holding offenders accountable for such violence. And what we've learned is that families, children, the lives of young people are being impacted every day. It's so prevalent within our community and communities across Oregon that we've dedicated an entire prosecutorial team just to manage the number of cases that law enforcement investigates and sends to us for review. And if I just were to give you a ballpark, we do 1,000 prosecutions a year, and that's been steady and pervasive as long as I can remember.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We have done a jail survey. I'm trying to remember what was the 4th or the 5th, the one that just came out. And this one was done by NPC Research, which is a very respected firm that does those types of studies. And when it came to the domestic violence statistic, these are people that are in jail, but we know 75% of the people in jail are there pre-trial. They were telling us that our numbers and proportion of inmates in the jail that have a domestic violence charge or involved somehow in that is much higher than the rest of the state. Do you have a sense about what drives some of the family violence that we're seeing in Marion County? And perhaps why there's so much of that in Marion County?
Well, I'll go back to what I've learned over the years. It is about personal accountability, personal behavior. And when an individual, mostly men, choose to act out in a violent way, and there are other ways in which we see domestic violence manifest itself through emotional control, financial control, many different looks to it in terms of actually impacting their partner's life. But it really boils down to a choice by an individual. And it comes to us in the form of a crime in many different ways. And one of the things I wanted to highlight today and why it matters so much to me is that we have seen numerous murders involving domestic violence over the years here in Marion County. And it's tragic. It literally shatters the lives and then the community. It almost disrupts the heartbeat of a community when a woman is murdered in a domestic violence relationship.
Thank you for that. So let's move to the discussion about Alliance for Hope, because I think in this conversation, hope is something that's very important for the victims that are involved in this type of situation. We had and Walt, maybe you can tell the story better than I can. We actually had an opportunity to meet with a guy named Casey Gwynn, and maybe you can just give us kind of how that all started.
Yeah, no, that was a great opportunity, I guess is the short answer. Mr. Gwynn has a national organization that has some expertise at looking at how communities deliver services. And these are services to children, like through family building blocks and Liberty House, and also domestic violence services, who we just heard from here on this program. We invited them to come take a look at how we were doing our work. And so with your help, we coordinated some different meetings. They had a chance to come in and look at our programs, from juvenile to those different nonprofits to our office, and visit with our people and really dig down and see what we did. And the takeaway from that is that we're doing a pretty good job here. I guess we have to accept, I'll own that, that's a good thing, but we can always improve. Mm-hmm. And so from that report, from our interactions with Casey and his team, we were able to identify certain areas we could improve, and we've been hard at work on that as well.
Correct, and we put together a work group with Center for Open Safety, the District Attorney's Office, Liberty House, Parole and Probation, City of Salem. I'm trying to think, we had a whole group of people that got together and just went, well, the Sheriff's Office went one by one through the various recommendations, and then kind of determined whether or not it was a long-term thing we could do, or we could do it right away, or something in between, who would take the lead, those types of things. I can't remember how many pages we had, 5, 6 pages of very small print working through those recommendations. But there are a few things that we've actually made some progress on since we had that study done. It was almost a year ago. It was in October of 2015. So Kim, maybe you can speak to a few of the things that you know of that we've worked on with that Alliance for Hope study. Sure. That are either in the works or that we're wrapping up on now.
One of the things they talked about was law enforcement training, and making sure that we had some consistency in investigation around our county. And one of the things the Domestic Violence Council has taken on is trying to get out to law enforcement agencies. So we've developed a pretty robust protocol training program that we are kind of in the middle of right now. We've had held 3 so far, and we have 2 more to go. But it's an opportunity to have law enforcement here, what our protocol is in the county, how we investigate these cases, so that victims, regardless of where they live in the county, are getting the same response from police, and so that those cases are able to be prosecuted. Another area that they talked about a lot was restraining order advocacy, and really focusing on the support that we give to victims who are coming in for protective orders. And we've been able to really shore up the advocacy for those hearings every day, and the advocacy for helping people complete those restraining orders and making sure they have the support in that process. And looking at giving people the option of appearing by video at those hearings instead of needing to be in the courtroom, if that's something that makes them afraid when they're coming through the process. So We've had some pretty exciting changes.
That was a huge thing, the courtroom piece. I know what you were involved in helping that come to pass, so that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's been a goal of ours for a while, and we're excited to be able to put that into play for survivors of domestic violence. And
I know we're almost out of time, probably already out of time, but if you would just talk for just a moment about strangulation and what we learned also from the education that we got through this process. Yeah, we went to a training in San Diego, and they highlighted how important it is for your community to be able to identify and investigate and then demonstrate in a court of law that when an offender is strangling someone in a domestic violence relationship, you need to take that seriously and identify that and make sure that prosecution and then that resources are available for that victim of domestic violence, and that your people in your community know how to see it and take it seriously, because we know that's kind of a serious behavior that offenders will use. So thank you both for being here. We don't have time to talk about volunteers really, except that you need them, right? And we'll put the information at the end on the website and how to get in touch with you if people are hearing this and want to help. So thank you both for all the great work that you do.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Kevin Cameron. It's good to be here today, and with me today is Allison Kelly from the Liberty House. Alice, welcome, Allison.
Thank you.
Good to have you with us.
Great to be here.
Why don't we start off telling us a little bit about what Liberty House is, your role there, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Liberty House is a child abuse assessment center, and we're located up off the Salem Parkway, and we provide services for children who are referred for concerns of abuse or neglect. We see children ranging from newborn through age 18, sometimes even older, and we provide neutral services to help assess whether abuse has occurred and work with cooperatively with other partners that are also interested in that child's safety, such as law enforcement partners and the Department of Human Services. And the benefit of being able to work together is that it reduces the number of different appointments in different places that a child might have to go to get help, and instead it concentrates the services in one location at one time, and we have those professionals come to the child and have a very child-friendly environment, and so it creates less trauma.
Sure, and got to tour the original facility, and I know you've gone through some expansion lately. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I was most impressed with was the calmness, the trust level that you build with the youth and how you do that, and just amazing the volunteer effort that you have
Right.
as well. So can you talk a little bit about that process? And
I can.
Yeah.
I think a good way to think about it is that for children who have experienced some sort of trauma or abuse or severe neglect, they become, naturally, they can become afraid, and they can be really sensitive to things that happen around them and to them. And so the whole design of Liberty House is that the pace is very slow, and the service and the way that we even interact with children is very child-focused. We honor their process. And we also provide that kind of support for their families or caregivers. And so we have wonderful volunteers who will spend some time with children while we're meeting with their families or caregivers, and then make sure that when we're interacting with the children, we do that in a way that they feel respected.
Great. So, and you recently had your stakeholders lunch, as you referred to
Yep.
it, and you've got new facilities, new services, debt-free
Right?
as
Yeah.
well. So can you talk about some of the new services you're able to expand or be offering as a result of the investment from the community and the stakeholders in the community?
I can. Liberty House has been in operation since 1999, and its core service is really focused around that assessment and providing services and recommendations, so medical checkups and family support and an interview. And now, beginning in this past spring, we have launched mental health services to provide the follow-up support that many children need and their families need also. And we did that based on a community survey, community needs assessment. That's what our community partners told us would be most value added.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because it's not just the child who is going through the trauma that from abuse or from a situation, but it's you can't ever disconnect the family and the problems that the father or the mother or the grandparents may be facing. So you're just talking about you're bringing that whole group in,
Right.
For that through this expansion. So
Right.
it was great
Yeah.
great to know that. So how can people that are watching today, how can they get involved and help? I know we just had a great luncheon. That's
Yeah.
one thing they can attend, but they can still, even if they weren't at that lunch, there's other ways they can get involved and even contribute financially or with their time.
They can, and I'm glad you brought that up, because we do see ourselves as a resource with and for the community. The first thing that I might suggest would be to visit the website, which is libertyhousecenter.org. And there's quite a bit of information on that website. We also offer tours every Tuesday, so it's funny, we call it Tours on Tuesday.
Good.
And at 5:30, we do encourage people to call ahead and let us know that they're coming, and that's an opportunity to see the new facilities and the new garden that we're putting in, and to get questions answered, and also to get some information about volunteering.
So one of the things we were talking about before we went on taping, we were talking a little bit about child abuse and domestic violence, and are they separate issues, or what do you have interconnections there?
That's a great question. We have a lot of families in our local area who just struggle with a lot of things, and in those situations where domestic violence is involved, it's very, very serious. And if there are children in the home, there's a pretty high likelihood that they themselves will at least have been exposed to the violence, will witness the violence, and themselves may have been victimized but have been too scared to say anything to anybody or have been told not to say anything to anybody. And so it's important to know for people who are responding to concerns of domestic violence that if there are children in the home, we need to take their needs into consideration as well.
Great. Maybe we can, we've got just a couple minutes left, maybe talk about some of the things of the future that people could look forward to. And there may be people watching here that they've had experiences in their life. If you want to share anything that can give them a little glimpse of hope and for their future.
Absolutely. I think for one, we do get asked often, how do we get referrals? And so anyone can call our direct line that I think we'll put up on the screen as well. And if we do encourage people who need to report child abuse to call that hotline. I think the most exciting thing is that we're offering follow-up counseling and mental health services for children and their families, and support groups and groups about how to manage issues with your teenager and things like that. So I would just encourage people to contact us, let us know what questions they have. We also can provide some informal consulting if they have questions, have them meet with our family support staff.
Yeah, it's only by the grace of God when my daughters were like 12, 13, I wish I would have had that counseling because I couldn't do anything right as a dad.
Yeah.
Later on in life, I became one of their heroes, so that was encouraging. So what I want to really end with today is that you know, we've heard from the Center for Hope and Safety, and we've talked to our district attorney and victims assistants, and there's a lot of positive things that are happening out there for people who are in these situations. But I also want people to know and understand that there is, because of our community, and I've been, in fact, I just posted to Facebook as we were filming this, that I've been wearing this Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting for 2 years, that there's a lot of people in our community that take this very seriously. Our district attorney, our sheriff, as well as a lot of community resources. So people that are watching today, we just want to really encourage you that there are resources out there, and it's sometimes a very difficult thing to pick up the phone and make a phone call, but it's a chance to get the help you need, to have reconciliation, to go through counseling, to do the things that will make life better in the future for not only the individual, the family, but also our community. It's a great place that we live in, and all those resources are working together. And you heard a little bit earlier Walt and Commissioner Carlson talking about the assessment that we just went through to see how we could even improve upon it. So we're always trying to work and get better. So I just wanted to leave that message of hope for our audience tonight and today whenever you're watching this. And we want to thank you for watching this program on Domestic Violence Awareness Month and Victims Assistance.